Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm the one that signed that letter that said welcome to the Jesuit School of Theology.
That was you?
That was me. That reflected, though, a lot of work, though, on your part to get here. And the work of a lot of people in our enrollment office, Memphis and Barbara and Laura, to bring you here. And so we're delighted to have you here. In the end, everything we do here begins and ends with God's help and God's grace, so it's fitting that we begin with a prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, we ask that all of our work, our labor, all of our words, our actions, everything we do and say begins by your inspiration, and through you becomes happily ended for the good of ourselves, our world, our church, and particularly those most in need. I ask you to bless us on this day, particularly our new students who have traveled far or are still traveling to come here. That you accompany them to reveal to them their callings, their vocations in the church and the world, so that together we may be men and women for others, making the world a more just and gentle and thoughtful place. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So at 11:30 we'll have a prayer service from some of our students. And then later today, if you wish, Mass at 5:15. I want to give you some of the larger context of why we're here at Berkeley in the Jesuit School of Theology, and a bit about who you are. When you look around the room, you can see you're a diverse lot of people. Yeah, you can actually look around the room. You're a really diverse lot of people. So you come, generally the school is about 40% of our students come from outside of North America. So truly an international school of theology, representing over 20 different countries. We haven't done the count for this year. So truly an international place. It's a diverse place of both Jesuits, other religious, priests, and laymen and women in the church. Predominantly Catholic. Over 90% of our students come from the Catholic tradition. Though, of course, we're engaged with the larger Graduate Theological Union here, which further diversifies our classroom spaces and our work here. You have a lot of different experiences. Some are fresh out of college, or a couple years out of college, maybe have done a year or two of service with the Jesuit Volunteer Corps or teaching. Or you may be more advanced in age and experience. Coming to retool as a second career or to deepen your commitment in your diocese or your church or your school. We have a number of people who are part of a sabbatical program that dates now nearly 40 years. A sabbatical program which gives men and women, religious primarily, but also some lay folks, as a way of taking a rest, to reflect and pray, to retool theologically before assuming a new mission in their congregation or their church. So it's a varied lot here, and that's actually what makes us distinctive, and that's why we thrive, I think, here, because of that diversity, which, frankly, in our world today, as we've been reflecting on as a nation, diversity, we think, is a great strength and a gift, and not an obstacle or a detriment. And so there's a witness that we have here at JST, which we're proud of, and now that you are a part of. Let me give you a little bit about the history of how literally I got here and the school got here. It actually dates back to the 1930s. Around 1930, the Jesuits founded Alma College. So if you go about 45 miles or 50 miles that way to the south, to the hills in the South Bay or Silicon Valley, you'll find Los Gatos. Beautiful part of the mountains there as we approach the coast, and that's where Alma College was founded. Alma College was basically a seminary for Jesuits. And back then there would have been a couple of hundred, I imagine, Jesuits in various stages of training or formation to the priesthood. All Jesuits, all very young, relatively, all being trained to serve the church. The crucifix in our chapel is actually from Alma College, because Alma College physically closed around 1970. And why is that? Well, the Second Vatican Council, where the church did some real thinking about its role in the world. And as you know, the Second Vatican Council called the church to engage the world, not to separate itself from the world. to engage other religious traditions, to engage culture, politics, economics, engage the world in all of its splendid diversity. And so the Jesuits here on the West Coast, like in other parts of the country, moved their seminaries from the hills right into the city. And we saw this in other parts of the country as well. But here, they went from the hills of Los Gatos to Berkeley, California in 1970. Now, if you're not from the United States, Berkeley, California, 1970 was probably one of the most active and alive and fervent communities, university communities and surrounding community, to engage all the change that was happening in the United States and the world back then. With the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the anti-war movement, where the university was rethinking the way it does its work. So was the church. And the Jesuit School of Theology at Berkeley then became part of that mix. And they came here, of all places, because of a great project called the Graduate Theological Union. And this, too, makes your education here distinctive and a real value. The Graduate Theological Union was founded a decade or so before the Jesuits arrived here. And it was a consortium, a collection of schools of theology from different Christian traditions. And they wanted to come together, again, in the same type of intellectual fermenting that was taking place at that time, to start to do theology more ecumenically and ultimately interfaith, interreligiously. And so presently the Jesuits are here, the Dominicans have a school down the hill. The Franciscans unfortunately had to left a couple of years ago. But we're joined by those in the Presbyterian, the Baptist, the Lutheran, the Episcopalian, the non-denominational Protestant traditions. There's an institute in Christian Orthodoxy, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, and Hinduism. And some here are getting MAs at the Graduate Theological Union, but their home school is JST. So that's the reason why, the primary reason why the Jesuits moved their seminary to Berkeley, is to take advantage of that. And it's a most amazing project. There are other consortia in Chicago, there wasn't in Boston, or there is, or slowly it's diminishing. The consortium in Washington unfortunately no longer exists really. But of these consortiums in the US, the one here continues to thrive because of the commitments that the different churches have made to this project, which in our world today is so, so very important, right? That we not only learn from within our own tradition, but we engage the traditions outside of our own faith tradition, which helps us understand where we come from and where God wants us to go together. So it's an amazing project. The other big change was the Jesuits admitted lay people into their seminary, and it became really a school, no longer a seminary as we would traditionally think of it. So laymen and women began studying with Jesuits and other religious, and now today, as I said, about half of our students are religious or priests, or half are lay people. And so that adds to the mix here. Now, as I describe this, it's a wonderful mix, but it's complicated. So my hope here is that as you engage the diversity of sort of religious traditions, diversity of understandings within the Catholic Church of what it means to be a church, as you engage the diversity of culture and race, diversity of age and experience, gender, that you will actually encounter some challenging conversations, which is one of the reasons why universities exist. In a sense, we exist here to gather people together so that great conversations can exist. And we want those conversations to be lively, engaging, and real. And if they are to be real, that means we're going to have to confront difference in a way that's life-giving and not a dead end to a conversation. We engage difference as a way that we all can grow by listening and learning. And in our world today, we need more models of that. And we hope to do it well here as you join our community. So like 8 years ago now, the Jesuit School of Theology affiliated with Santa Clara University. So your diploma will come from Santa Clara University, proudly. Because of the changes in economics in higher ed after the recession of 2008, 2009, 2010, the economy of higher education changed dramatically, where access and affordability became a fundamental question for those in the United States. As you know, as you've been struggling to pay off your undergraduate student loans or put together financial packages to come here, we proudly support you coming here with financial aid of different sorts, but we also know that you have relied on your own incomes and sources to live here, to eat, right, to support your education. That became all the more pressing for us and for most other universities in this country. No longer could the Jesuit School of Theology sort of stand on its own. We were just too small. We needed to rely on the resources of a larger university. And that thankfully was Santa Clara. And they provide us a wealth of resources to add to the richness that we already enjoy here. So we have a whole university behind us, back of us, supporting our work here. We're one of the 6 schools of Santa Clara. And we offer a distinctive contribution to Santa Clara as a Jesuit and Catholic university. What we do here, being a graduate school of theology, helps the university at Santa Clara think about its role in the world as a Catholic university. But they also offer us the richness of a traditional university with all of its different departments and schools, law school. So we had a wonderful class taught here last semester with Allison Benders and a professor from the law school on theology and race. Some of our students have been engaged with a center at Santa Clara that deals with social entrepreneurship in developing countries. But we had some of our students involved from a theological lens or an angle. So just 2 examples of some of the contributions that we, I think, give to one another as part of Santa Clara. And some of our students will go down to Santa Clara tomorrow, I think.
It's actually Wednesday.
It's Wednesday.
Everybody's invited.
Yeah, so Wednesday you have an opportunity to go down to the main campus. It's about 40 miles down the road, an hour without traffic. But without traffic is a great act of hope, because usually there's traffic in the Bay Area. So that's a bit of big picture about how we got here and who we are now, and our important engagement with Santa Clara and the Graduate Theological Union. The Jesuit community continues to be, we're here as a Jesuit school of theology, and many of our students you will see in your classrooms are Jesuits from around the world. At present, I think this year we'll have about 70 Jesuits in the Jesuit community. Most of those will be attached to the school, either teaching in the school or studying at the school. The other Jesuits are working in the Bay Area, but living here. I want to introduce John McGarry. John is a graduate of the Jesuit School of Theology. John is the rector of the Jesuit community here. John, you want to say any words of welcome?
Welcome. There'll actually be 84 Jesuits here in this community at one time or another throughout the year. We're from 25 different countries and about 30 provinces of the Society of Jesus, so we're coming from all over the world, 5 continents. We live in 6 houses in this direct area here, and we look forward throughout the year to welcoming you into our homes for various activities. So thank you and welcome to JST.
Great, thanks, John. Finally, I want to end on my introduction, my orientation on this note, that what's very important to the work of theology that we do here is that we do not simply do theology on this very nice hill overlooking the Bay Area, sort of separate from the world, but we are a place where we let the world in. Something that we here call contextual theology, which you will hear a lot of. Contextual theology is doing theology in dialogue with the cultures and communities which we serve. First, listening to them, embedding ourselves, becoming a part of those communities, being friends with those in those communities, where the questions emerge that we then seek to address. And then address in a way that's sensitive to the actual needs of those communities. So it's truly theology in dialogue with communities and cultures. Not doing theology separate from, as if we can open up a book and take this beautiful body of knowledge and just say, here it is. That's not very helpful. Because Jesuit education is about responding to people's needs where they're at. accompanying, as Pope Francis would say, accompanying people, listening to them, and having listened, then being able to really make our understanding of theology all the more rich. So contextual theology is very important here. And so you will see thematic throughout your education in your classes and in what we do co-curricularly, that is not in class. We will be raising here issues, like last year we did a year-long meditation, reflection, study on race and racism in theology. This year we'll continue that, and there's other more pressing concerns that we need to address as a school of theology. But we do it as a school of theology. That is, we bring the wealth of our Judeo-Christian tradition to bear on those questions. We bring the wealth of experience in ministry and pastoral care. Almost every student here, even in our different civil degree programs and our ecclesiastical degree programs, will be engaged in some form of ministry and pastoral service. And we provide a place for reflection to take place on that service, so that we can truly hope that we are being of service, addressing people's needs in the real world that people bring to us. In the process, as you know, in a spirit of true solidarity, this is not just simply about helping people, but it is about accompanying people in a way that both of us are growing closer to God and to one another, and both of us are being served in different ways. Our school is made all the richer because of the communities in which we are embedded. And traditionally, we have made some deep commitments. And you will hear certain places in San Francisco, certain parishes in San Francisco and in Oakland, where we have served for many years. And you'll come to understand this most amazing community here, particularly in the East Bay, which is a changing and evolving community, and on so many different levels. We also have deep commitments to serving and doing work at San Quentin Prison, where one of the Jesuits is the Catholic chaplain. In Dublin, where a women's correctional institution is located, we've had a long history there. We've also had a long history with a parish in West Oakland, St. Patrick's, where a Jesuit pastor staffs, and some of our students will have a chance to work. That's an evolving parish, formerly largely African American, now a mix of African American and Latino. Those are just 3 places, but there are many more that we proudly associate ourselves as a school. And again, not to think of those as labs, like, oh, that's where we go to learn how to be great ministers and theologians. No, those are actually extensions of our school. Those are places of learning as much as classrooms are places of learning, because the people in those communities have something to teach us about what it means to be a Christian today, what it means to be a person today, what it means to be a theologian today. All of you, whether you are studying for a doctorate or doing a sabbatical program or any of the 6 degrees that we offer here, all of you here are theologians with us, and you will help us do our thinking in the church, which desperately needs your minds and your hearts to make that theology come alive today. So thank you for listening, and you're going to have a lot of people talk with you the next few days. These are all really good people who are here, who could be doing a lot of other different things with their lives, but have chosen this place because they care deeply about the mission which I've just shared with you. So great, thanks for listening, and we'll see you later today.